Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was raised in Mortal Kombat Sasuke bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by 1200KAMI12, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, Prehistoric Age. Kronika, the Titanus and Keeper of Time, laid beaten and bloodied before the Chosen One and the now Fire God, Liu Kang. It is as I said, Kronika. Your new era will not come to pass. Satisfied with his victory, Liu walked over to his beaten adversary and took the crown from atop her head. You will not be needing this anymore. He then took a few steps back before steadily bringing the crown down on his head. As the crown touched his head, it emitted an ethereal green aura and his white pupil-less eyes lit up and crackled with lightning. Kronika spat blood from her mouth and weakly pushed herself into a kneeling position, glaring at the fire god. You are a fool. The timeline, the one which you so desperately wished to save, is a failure, just as every other that came before it. You sought perfection from an imperfect world. You orchestrated countless wars, ended countless lives, all for your vision of a perfectly balanced timeline. Your madness ends now. The fire god declared as fire and lightning danced around his body. He conjured a fireball to his hand and attacked the incapacitated titan. He continued to hurl multiple fireballs at her before blasting her with a stream of fire, turning her into a glass statue. He walked up to the statue and proceeded to shatter her arms with karate chops before doing a roundhouse kick and shattering her head. With one final push, the statue toppled over and shattered completely. And in doing so, the Titanus of time was no more. Seeing that he has done what was needed, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. From behind him he heard someone speak. Our work is finished, Liu Kang. Turning around, the fire god saw the now mortal and former thunder god. Lord Raiden. I am merely Raiden now. You have proven worthy to take my place as the new protector of Earthrealm once it is restored. With a humble bow, you honor me, Raiden. The honor is mine, the former god then returned the bow, Lord Liu Kang. The sands of time are now yours to shape. It falls upon you to be the architect for a new history. The fate of all realms in my hands. Raiden, I cannot do this alone. I will advise for as long as this mortal body allows. But make no mistake, you are up to the task, and with the crown in your possession, you are more than ready to be the new keeper of time. Liu gave his advisor a look of acknowledgement, then together, let us begin. Konoha. It was nighttime in Konoha, and a 12-year-old boy, wearing an orange jumpsuit, blue sandals and green goggles atop his head, can be seen treading the lighted streets on his own. The boy had tan skin, and his cerulean blue eyes that matched perfectly with his mess of sun-kissed blonde hair. But the most peculiar feature, he had the very one that immediately identified him, were the 3 whiskers like birthmarks adorning each cheek. This boy was no other than the infamous Naruto Uzumaki, and he had just been let go from the academy after being held back for detention. Again. Sad part was, it wasn't even his fault this time around. One of the other students had decided it would be a good idea to egg their instructor and then use him as a scapegoat. Being the small-minded bigot that the instructor was, he wasted no time in blaming Naruto for the joke and slapping him with detention. The damn prank wasn't even that funny. Now here he was, trying to make his way home before any of the asshole villagers got any funny ideas. As he walked by a restaurant, he overheard a conversation between a few men that were drinking outside, eyeing him with a drunken daze. Wait, isn't that him? The demon brat. The tallest of the men asked the drunken group, cheeks flushed. Yeah, it is. The black-haired man downed the bottle of beer in a single gulp. He spared a glance at the man to his right, a grin on his lips. Yo, when was the last time we've had some fun with him? Far too long, he answered with a matching grin. Well then, the man threw his bottle on the ground, shattering it into million pieces. I think it's time we went and enjoyed ourselves. Naruto flinched at their words before a scowl appeared on his face. This again. Slowly he began to pick up the pace, not wanting to deal with the asshole civilians again. More and more footsteps could be heard behind him as other villagers caught on to what was going down and decided to join in. Sensing the impending danger and with a growl of irritation, Naruto took off in a full sprint at a speed that no academy student should possess. At the demon. A man with long ash blonde hair and dark navy blue eyes who was seated in a restaurant and was about to enjoy the meal he had just bought, watched the scene with a monotone expression on his face. Stupid idiots. With a sigh, he ushered one of the waitresses over to him. I'll take this to go, please. With dust being kicked up by each step he took, he glanced behind and he could see the mob slowly start to disappear from his view. A smirk came to his lips. Better luck next time, you pieces of crap. His instinct suddenly went on high alert and screamed at him to duck. With his head now facing forward, he could see the glint of a kunai sailing toward him. With excellent flexibility, he bent backwards and watched as the kunai sailed overhead. He sprung forward and somersaulted to avoid another volley of bladed projectiles. With a few more flips, he easily avoided the rest of the projectiles before they finally ceased and he skidded to a halt. With a quick glance to the surrounding rooftops, Naruto found the culprit. A Chunin judging by the light green color flak jacket. Glancing from his left to his right, he saw that the Chunin wasn't alone for on both sides of the street were his cohort's two more Chunin. They didn't say anything, they just quickly got out their weapons and began to line up their throws. The blonde quickly glanced behind and smirked. Holding up his hand, he gave them a two-fingered salute. "See ya." Before dashing into the alleyway behind him. "Damn it." One of the Chunin cursed. After him. Naruto sped through the alley to try and use its quick and sharp turns to his advantage and escape. Kami must have turned a blind eye to him on this faithful night, for just as he thought that he had escaped, the alley came to a dead end. Well, this is inconvenient. Hearing the rapidly incoming footsteps, the blonde quickly shined up the walls and appeared on top of one of the surrounding buildings. As he was about to make his escape, one of the Chunin caught up to him. "You ain't going nowhere," the woman said before she tried to kick the boy back into the alley. Evading the kick, Naruto grabbed the woman's foot in one hand and slammed his elbow down on her knee, shattering the bone. The woman howled in pain but was interrupted when Naruto slammed his elbow into her nose, breaking it and knocking her unconscious. Without missing a beat, the whiskered boy fixed his grip on the Chunin's broken leg and tossed her off the roof and into the alley below. The blonde couldn't let his guard down, however, because the other two finally caught up. The first one punched at Naruto's face, but the blonde redirected the punch and slammed his knee into the man's groin. Ignoring the high-pitched squeal, Naruto quickly ducked under the second man's attack and countered with two well-placed punches to his abdomen, one to the stomach and another to the chest, followed by a jumping heel kick to the man's face to finish the combo and knock his opponent down. With no time to waste, Naruto turned to face his other adversary, who was still holding his neutered jewels. Acting quickly, the blonde grabbed both sides of the shinobi's head and slammed his face into the roof tiling, knocking him out cold. Believing that the worst had passed, the bewhiskered boy took a breath before moving to escape. Gigi really needs better leashes for his dogs. Letting his guard down would prove to be the wrong choice when the still conscious Chunin flickered in front of him and straight up kicked him in the face and sent him back into the alley. Spinning in midair, Naruto managed to land on his feet. He held his face as blood leaked from his nose. Son of a, with a quick twist, he snapped the broken appendage back in place. He groaned in pain and that's when he realized that he was completely surrounded. Damn it. Apparently the civilian mob had caught up during his scuffle with the Chunin. "Nearly thought you got away for a second, you stinking fox," the apparent leader of the mob said. Looking out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw the Chunin come collect his female cohort with his other friend slung over his shoulder. With a final angry glare, the man flickered away, likely to the hospital. Naruto looked back at the mob. "Heh, well, you know how quick and slippery we little bastards can be," Naruto retorted with a mocking tone before his tone became serious. "So how about it? You guys let me go and we can pretend that this never happened." This made the mob laugh before the black-haired man in the front spoke. "As if that's gonna happen. It's been too long since we've been able to punish you and we're not about to let the chance slip by." Thud. Naruto dropped his backpack before cracking his neck from side to side and cracked his knuckles. "Fine then." He then got into a fighting stance. "You son of a bitches want a piece of me." He then gave them the bring it hand gesture, "Then come get some." A few of the mobsters felt their resolve falter and began to take steps back, for they knew that he was no pushover from past failed attacks. They would have left altogether had the leader not spoken. "You think you can take down all of us?" the black-haired middle-aged man sneered. "Look around, you're surrounded and completely outnumbered." Naruto snorted. "Who says I need to take down all of you? I just need to take down enough to give myself an opening. Now come on, I ain't getting any younger and I have better things to do with my time other than wasting it with you lot." Just as he said that, a resounding snap could be heard bouncing off the walls of the alley. The villagers were confused and it showed in how they were all looking around, wondering what that was and who did it. Their confusion ended, however, when they looked back at their target. Naruto was trembling. His breathing was fast and erratic. He felt his heart pounding against his chest like a jackhammer. His bravado evaporated into thin air and was now replaced with crippling fear. Looking up at the villagers, his eyes widened in terror and he started to take steps, backing away from them. A few of the villagers, including the mob leader, realized what happened and sinister grins appeared on their faces. The others were still clueless, but saw how some of the others were grinning and so decided not to think too much into it. The leader took a few steps toward the terrified boy and chuckled, "Well, what do we have here? A cornered demon in need of a beating." Panicked, Naruto threw a sloppy punch at the man. "Stay away from me." The black-haired man easily dodged the attack and gave his own attack in the form of an iron pipe to the boy's face. A resounding crack could be heard as he shattered the blonde's jawbone. Naruto fell to the ground, holding his mouth in agonizing pain. All while the man stood over him with a wickedly satisfied smile on his face. That felt good. Tears started to flow from the Jinchuriki's eyes as he slowly backed away some more until his back hit the dead end. His breath caught in his throat when he saw the rest of the mob closing in on him. With his hand over his mouth and tears in his eyes, he spoke in a muffled voice, but they still heard him. Please don't do this. I didn't do anything." His plea for mercy was met with a brown-haired mobster rushing up and smashing the bottom of his boot into his face, breaking the boy's nose and slamming the back of his head against the concrete wall, splitting it open. The brown-haired man grabbed the delirious boy by his collar and pulled him up so he was glaring right into the Uzumaki's eyes. "If you didn't do anything, then why the fuck is my son not alive today?" "Oh, that's right." He then slammed the boy into the wall, further opening the wound on the back of his head. "You killed him. And it's high time you pay for what you did." The rest of the mob took this as their cue to descend on him like vultures to a rotten carcass. Rocks smashed on his body, the rust from blunt weapons getting into his wounds with each hit, knives cutting into his flesh as if he were fresh meat at a butcher's shop. The whole time, they were reveling in the bloody screams of pain and the pleas for them to stop that were coming from the boy. A half hour passed before they momentarily ceased their assault to admire their work thus far. Naruto stood on shaking legs, his breathing labored and his vision all but a blur. With a groan, his legs gave out. His body lay beaten and bloody on the alley ground, curled up and twitching in pain. Please stop. Have mercy." He tried to blink away the darkness that was enveloping his vision. "You hear that? The demon is begging for mercy." This made the entire mob erupt into a mocking laughter. The leader of the mob then stomped on Naruto's back, causing the boy to release a shrill cry of agony. "Where was our mercy when you laid waste to our village? When you killed our loved ones?" "Ooh, but I didn't." His answer was met with a swift kick that sent his battered body crashing into the wall. "Lying is not going to help you." The black-haired leader then looked to the fellow villagers. "Smoke break is over. Time to dive back in," he said before the mob once again descended on the boy. Two young girls could be seen walking along the nighttime streets of Konoha. One was an admittedly beautiful blonde who wore her hair in a ponytail with a single long bang over the right side of her face. She had light blue eyes and a fair skin tone, which was adorned in a white t-shirt and black pants. This was Ino Yamanaka, number 2 fangirl of the Uchiha fan club. The other girl, who had long bubblegum-colored hair that fell just above her waist and emerald green eyes, was wearing a sleeveless kipao dress with slits at the sides, matching it with a lovely pair of dark green biker shorts. This was Sakura Haruno, number 1 fangirl of the Uchiha fan club. After class was finished for the day, Sakura had spent the majority of her evening at Ino's home to hang out with said girl. Now that the sun was no longer on the horizon and the many street lamps began lighting up, it was time for her to head home. Ino was by her side, continuing with their debate they had when they first left the blondie's house. "I'm telling you, forehead, you should quit while you're behind." "Sasuke is gonna marry me," Ino said, with a smug grin. "In your dreams, Ino pig," Sakura said with a roll of her eyes. "He's gonna marry me before I help him revive his clan." "Tell you what, you can be my children's godmother," she mocked. "Like hell I will. You can be my children's godmother after I help Sasuke revive his clan." Ino shot back. "Ino pig. Billboard brow. Ino pig. Billboard brow." By this point, they were butting heads and sparks were flying between the two, but then they started laughing as if they weren't just at each other's throat. Despite being rivals for the heart of Sasuke Uchiha, both had promised the other that they wouldn't let their friendship suffer just because they were interested in the same boy. Calming down from laughing, Ino spoke up. "But seriously though, Sakura, I think it's time we start to take our training seriously." "Huh? What brought this on?" Sakura asked. Ino's expression became sullen. "It's just that after a year at the academy, I don't feel any stronger than when I joined, and I know that the same goes for you. We're both pretty smart since we nearly tied for book grades, but we fall short on anything practical." Despite wanting to deny the claim and say that she was one of the best kunoichi to be in the academy, her logical mind wouldn't allow her to refute Ino's claim. When compared to the likes of Sasuke-kun, Kiba, Shino, Choji, Hinata, heck even that slacker Shikamaru and that baka dead last Naruto, we're pretty mediocre. Ino heaved a long sigh, her frown deepened. "I just don't want to end up being a liability when we eventually graduate and put on teams." Sakura could only nod in acknowledgement, now speaking with determination coating her voice. "So how about it? We start taking our training seriously so we don't lag behind," Ino said. "Oh, you're so on," Sakura answered with a wide smile. "And may the strongest kunoichi win." Ino challenged. "Oh, don't worry, I will," Sakura said with a teasing smirk. "Like hell, billboard brow. Ino pig. Billboard brow. Ino pie." Sakura stopped mid-insult when she heard something in the distance. "Wait, did you hear that?" Ino raised an eyebrow at the question. "Hear what, forehead?" Sakura quickly shushed her. "Just listen," she whispered. And so Ino did. After a few seconds she heard it. The bawling of someone, a child, by the sound of it traveling with the soft wind in unsettling harmony. Is that someone screaming? Ino asked, worry and concern clear on her face. Yeah, I think it is. Sakura trailed off, looking at Ino nervously. Do you think that we should maybe check it out? She asked, gulping down her nerves. Just in case someone is hurt. Yeah. Ino released a shaky breath. Her shaking frame didn't give the confident aura her eyes held. Just in case. Both girls started to follow the screams until they found themselves entering an alleyway. With nervous gulps, both hesitantly made their way into the dark alleyway. With each step they could hear the screams getting louder and louder. It sounds like someone is getting tortured. Sakura shakily informed Ino, who was now seriously considering turning back but decided to press on. Just one more corner before they met the reason for the wailing voice. Their eyes checking the other if they wanted to continue, one last chance to back out and pretend they didn't hear anything. With a quick nod to each other, they steeled themselves and peeked around the corner. What they saw made them gasp in shock and horror. Naruto, their troublesome dead last classmate, was crucified to the wall. His entire form was covered in black and blue, blood seeping out, the many wounds littering his body. Surrounding their fellow ninja in training was a mob of villagers who were watching a black-haired man taking his time to carve up the boy's skin with a knife. The whole time Naruto was screaming his lungs out while his torturers were smiling in glee. Both girls were horrified at this scene, they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Sure, Naruto was a nuisance with his pranks and overly boisterous personality, but that was no reason to torture him. They ducked out of sight before turning to each other. We can't let them keep doing this, we have to do something. They're torturing him for Kami's sake, Ino whispered. I know, but there's an entire mob of adults out there, Sakura whispered back hotly. Aggravation cleared in her tone. As we are now, there's nothing we can do. Another bloody scream ripped through the air, making the two girls freeze in place. Sure, neither of them really liked the boy, nor were they afraid of beating on him from time to time, but even he didn't deserve this. Tears formed in their eyes when they heard him speak to his assailants. P, please let me go. I promise I won't tell anyone. P, please. When the girls heard his plea for mercy, it made them silently sob at how broken he sounded. Oh, don't worry. When we're done with you, you won't be telling anyone anything, ever again. The man grabbed a machete from one of his cohorts, lined it up with the boy's neck before raising his hand. As he was about to swing, he heard. Stop. The mob looked to where the sound came from to find two girls watching them. Let him go. He didn't do anything for you to be torturing him. Ino shouted. It's best if you little girls turn around and leave while forgetting what you saw here. Believe me, the man spun the machete in his hand, you'll sleep better at night if you do. The girls, both of whom were pretty smart, caught on to the man's threat immediately and felt their resolve falter. Like hell we will, Ino shouted. Where do you sick fucks get off on torturing a kid? The mob was quickly growing impatient with this interruption. Listen here, girlie. This, pointing at Naruto with the machete, is no kid. He's a demon who has taken human form. We're just doing what that spineless old man refuses to do. Ino was about to snap back at them, but Naruto's call stopped her. Ino-chan, Sakura-chan. Naruto weakly called, getting the girls' attention. It's okay. I'll be alright. So Jay, just go. I'll see you at C class tomorrow. Despite the immense pain and the swelling on his face, he managed to put on his signature fox-like smile to reassure the girls. You hear that? Your little friend is gonna be just fine. So run along and keep in mind to forget what you saw here, or else, the man said, letting the threat hang. Ino and Sakura couldn't help but tear up some more at what they just heard. Despite being in obvious pain, he was trying to keep them safe by making them leave. It made them feel horrible about how they had treated him. No. Sakura shouted, we're not leaving you here for these assholes to kill you. Naruto's eyes widened upon hearing that. Sakura-chan, he whispered. That's it. I've had enough. The leader looked to the mob. Get them. Two of the men moved to grab the girls. Hearing this, the two girls tried to fight back but were quickly caught by the stronger adults. The girls struggled to get away but stopped when knives were pressed against their throats. They could only glare at the man who was leading the mob. Now don't be like that, after all, you were given more than enough chances to walk away but stupidly chose to stay. Unfortunately for you, we can't have you talking, so the knives pressed deeper against their throats, making the girls lock up in fear. Yo boss, if we're just gonna kill them, can't we at least have some fun with them first? One of them reached down and cupped Ino's rear, making her jump and making the blade to draw a bit of blood. It'd be wrong for such fine flesh to go to waste. No. Let them go. Naruto shouted, only to be backhanded across the face, loosening a few of his teeth. Shut up. It's their fault for supporting demon trash like you. The leader turned to the men restraining the girls. Do whatever you want. Just make sure to dispose of them afterward. The men gained lecherous grins as they roughly threw the girls to the ground before ripping their clothes off. Get your hands off me. Ino yelled as she managed to kick the one holding her in his jewels, who let her go to nurse his bruised nuts. Ino was about to help Sakura, but got blindsided by another villager with a hard hit to the back of the head, knocking her out. Ino. Sakura shouted but was cut off when the man holding her started to kiss her roughly while groping her naked body. The man pulled back and Sakura unfortunately looked into his eyes. There was a blood-red gleam, lacking any morality. Raw lust, depravity and a craving for flesh in his eyes. He spoke and his rancid breath made her nostrils recoil at the stench. "I'm gonna enjoy breaking you," he promised, dragging his tongue across her neck. She trembled in his grasp and tears formed in her eyes. "No, this isn't happening." Off to the side she could hear the other man asking his friends to hold Ino's legs open for him. She then felt something tickle her nether regions. Looking down she could see that the man was lining himself up with her. No, no. This can't be happening. Tears were now streaming down her face as she looked over at Naruto, who was still being beaten by the others, but his distraught eyes never left hers. Despite knowing Naruto couldn't help her, she couldn't help but send him a pleading look, as if begging him to do something. Despite the hits rocking his body and the pain accompanying each one, Naruto couldn't break his gaze from Sakura's. He could only watch on in horror as two of the people he treasured the most were about to be violated. It made him angry. His eyes flickered bright blue, angry at himself for being so weak and useless. The air began to crackle around him. Angry at the villagers for the abuse he's gotten. The street lamps all exploded, removing the alley's only source of light. What the hell? And finally, he was angry that those he cared about were getting hurt because of him. Again. His eyes glowed bright blue as he let out an earth-shattering yell. His body began to glow before it erupted in an explosion of lightning. The explosion knocked back and electrocuted all of the attackers, but strangely enough it didn't harm either of the girls. All went silent in the now dark alleyway. The only bit of light that was present was the silver illumination coming from the heavenly celestial body in the sky. Sakura pushed the body of her would-be assailant off of her before quickly checking herself. Fortunately, the man hadn't been able to start anything. With her limited vision, she looked around and noticed the burned and charred bodies of most of the villagers. This was followed the heavy scent of burnt flesh. Those that weren't burned were spasming violently and foaming at the mouth. Swallowing the bile that threatened to erupt from her mouth, she searched through the bodies for her friend. A low moaning drew her to her Ino's location. With some effort, she managed to pull Ino from underneath her now deceased assailant, and with a quick check, she determined that her platinum blonde friend was still pure as well. "Sakura-chan, are you okay?" Looking to where the voice came from and with the aid of a ray of moonlight that was shining on him like a spotlight, she saw Naruto. His back was slumped against a wall, and the kunai that pinned him to the wall were nothing more than smoking black spots. His clothes were all burnt off save for his pants that was barely keeping him modest. Lightning was crackling along his body, and his eyes were glowing brighter than the stars in the sky, but they still held an expression of concern in them for her. "Hi, Naruto. Thank you." His vision was fading to nothingness, but he managed to respond with, "Good." Before his head slumped and his consciousness left him. Chapter 2. Rip, rip, rip. That was the sound that echoed in the dimly lit tunnel that Naruto was now in. He was laying on his back and a low groan escaped his mouth as he stirred awake. His eyes slowly cracked open and his blurry vision gradually got clearer. "Where am I?" he asked as he sat up and heard the sound of water rippling under him. Looking down he could see that he was sitting in clear ankle-deep water. But the funny thing was that he didn't feel wet. His eyes adjusted to the dim lighting and he deduced that he was in some sort of sewer, given that he was in a tunnel as well as the water. Under the water he could make out some pipes running along the floor. He looked up and found similar pipes running along the ceiling. He groggily got to his feet and looked around with a scrutinizing gaze. It looks like a sewer, but at the same time it doesn't seem like one. Given that he's been tossed into Konoha's sewer on more than a few occasions, he knew what being in one was like. Knowing that just standing around wasn't gonna get him anywhere, he decided to follow the tunnel to see if he could find some way out. As he walked he began to inspect the tunnel walls and was silently surprised when he found multiple doors lining them. With his interest piqued and his curiosity getting the better of him, he decided to go through one of them. He picked a door and turned the knob. As soon as he cracked it open his eyes were assaulted by a blinding bright light. As the light died down, his ears picked up on the sound of running, as well as the joyous cheers of children. He squinted his eyes, and his blurry vision gradually got clearer. With his vision going from blurry to focused, he started to make the out objects around him. Swing sets, seesaws, jungle gyms, other recreational equipment, and an army of kids all playing on them. "I'm on a playground." He noticed, before his features morphed into that of confusion. "How did I end up on a playground?" He walked around and took notice that no one seemed to realize that he was there. It was like he was invisible. Wanting to test this little theory, he decided to call out the child closest to him. "Hey, kid." He called out but received no response. "Maybe I didn't call out enough," he pondered. "Hey, kid." He called louder but still received no response. The blonde's brow furrowed in confusion. Okay, this is starting to get weird. He walked up to the child and went to touch her on her shoulder. Hey, didn't you hear me? Only for his hand to pass right through. He raised an eyebrow at this discovery. Okay, that went from weird to freaky, real quick. He watched as the little girl ran off to play with her friends before he turned his attention to the rest of the playground. Something, or rather someone, caught his attention. In the corner of the playground sitting under a tree by his lonesome was a blonde boy with blonde hair, blue eyes, and 3 whisker marks on his cheeks. Naruto's mouth fell open and his eyes widened as he realized just who he was looking at. That's me. It was that time in Konoha where the sun would be at its highest point in the sky. At one of Konoha's playgrounds was a 7-year-old Naruto. He was off to the side, sitting by himself under a tree while watching the other kids play. He so badly wanted to join them and hopefully make some friends, but he knew that he couldn't. He didn't know why, but no parent would allow their kids to play with him, so the best he could do was sit aside and watch them have fun, all while wondering what it would be like if he were a part of it. He could hear footsteps approaching, so he turned his head to see who it was. It was a pale-skinned girl with short blonde hair and pale blue eyes, and she was standing just a few feet away from him with a smile on her face. Hey there cutie, I'm Ino. What's your name? The girl asked. Naruto looked around to see if she may have been referring to someone else. Not seeing anyone, he then looked back at her and pointed to himself. Me? Ino giggled, of course I'm talking to you, silly. Who else has those cute whiskers on their cheeks? She pointed out. A pink hue found its way onto the boy's cheeks as he put a hand to where his whiskers were. Why you think they're cute? Ino giggled again before she went right up and sat beside him. Absolutely. Can I touch them? Please. The girl begged with pleading eyes. One thought came to Naruto's mind to describe her. Cute wait. Where did that come from? He quickly shook his head to clear those thoughts. Seeing Ino still waiting for his approval, he gave it to her, much to the girl's joy. Yay. The blonde girl cheered before she put her hand on his cheek and slowly started to rub his whiskers. Naruto felt a sudden but pleasant feeling start to flow through his body. His muscles started to relax as any tension he was feeling slowly melted away under Ino's ministration. His eyes became half-lidded and his breathing steadied. Then a low, continuous vibratory sound started to emanate from him as he leaned more into her touch. Ino watched his reactions with girlish delight, silently squealing at how adorable he was. Then she felt her hand start to vibrate. When she listened, she realized that the vibration was coming from Naruto. The look of realization dawned on her as she realized what was happening. He's purring. She wanted to squeal and yell kawaii. But she held it in, not wanting to startle her new friend who she still didn't know the name for. Time to rectify that. You know, I never did get your name. Naruto was so relaxed at this point that his eyes were closed and he was half asleep. Upon hearing the question, he mumbled, it's Naruto. She stopped rubbing his whiskers and took her hand from his face, an action that instantly brought Naruto out of his blissful stupor. What was that? That's the first time I've ever felt like that and I'm kinda missing it now. Okay then Naruto, you wanna play? Naruto looked at her in disbelief. You wanna play with me? Of course. The blonde girl then tilted her head in mild confusion. Is there a reason I shouldn't? Naruto shook his head. No reason and thanks. No problem. She then grabbed his hand and dragged him to the playground. Now let's go. After that, the blonde duo spent the rest of the day together. There wasn't a ride on the playground that they didn't play on. From pushing each other on the swing, going at crazy speeds on the spinner, to racing down the twin slides. They enjoyed themselves to the fullest. And when evening came they sat side by side atop the jungle gym to rest from their day of fun. Naruto pumped his fists in the air. Today was great. He exclaimed. This is the first time I've ever had so much fun and it's all thanks to you, Ino. Ino gave him a small smile. You're welcome. But don't think that this will be the only day. You mean? He started in a hopeful tone. Yep, you're my friend now and I'm gonna spend as much time as I can with you. Yada. He then glumped the blonde girl in a big hug. Thanks Ino-chan, you're the best. Ino was briefly taken aback by his reaction but returned the hug with a small smile and a pat on his back, and you better remember that. A few more seconds passed and Naruto realized that he was still holding on to her. A blush crept onto his face as he immediately let go of her and rubbed the back of his sheepishly. Sorry about that. It's alright, I didn't mind. Besides, you look so cute with that blush. She teased. That only made Naruto's blush deepen to where he turned away to try and hide it. Ino saw this and couldn't help but press on. Ow, is my cute little friend embarrassed? Again the boy's blush deepened to where he was looking like a ripe tomato. Ino. The blonde boy whined as he turned to face her. Would you please stop teasing me? I'd rather not die from all the blood going to my head. She reached over and pinched his cheek, but these whiskers look so adorable when you're red. She cooed. Naruto swatted her hand away. If you keep teasing me, then I'll just stop you from touching them. Ino gasped, you wouldn't dare. Thinking that he had the upper hand, he smugly answered, try me. Ino shook her head at the boy, so you want to play it that way huh? Okay Naruto, just know that you brought this on yourself. She then got right up in his face and brought out her koinu no inu no mi. Oh no. Look away now. Despite what his mind was yelling at him to do, his body stubbornly refused to comply. She then started to speak in a soft tone, you know you don't mean that. Naruto-kun. Naruto's body went rigid at the way she said his name, only made worse by the use of the honorific. Ino saw that she had him right where she wanted him and a small devious smile appeared on her hips. Perfect. Now time to go in for the kill. She then slowly started to raise her hand. Naruto saw her hand getting closer, but he was too mesmerized by her big pale blue eyes to do anything to stop it. She gently rested her hand on his cheek and slowly rubbed his whiskers, earning her the same reaction as before. So, you still want to keep me from touching them? Naruto was doing his ever best to fight against the pleasure that he was feeling, but in the end, he lost and had to relent. Oh okay fine, you win. Ha! I win, Naruto-kun. The girl cheered. Naruto shook himself out of his blissful stupor and folded his arms, while pouting feeling embarrassed at being played like that. Ino saw this and patted the boy on his head, ow, now don't be like that. Just let this be a lesson. A sweat drop appeared on Naruto's head. What kind of lesson could I learn from you manipulating me? He deadpanned. A simple one. I always get what I want. Ino answered with smug pride in her tone. Believe me, my boy, you have no idea how true that statement is. An unknown older male voice said. Walking onto the playground was a light-skinned man wearing a Jonin uniform with blonde hair similar to Ino's, but it was in a ponytail. Daddy. The blonde girl shrieked as she rocketed off the jungle gym. The man opened his arms and caught the girl before twirling her around and plopping her on his shoulders. Hey there, pumpkin, how was my little Himes day? It was great. I had a lot of fun and even made a new friend. She then turned her attention to the boy who was still on top of the jungle gym. Hey Naruto, come here. I want you to meet my dad. No Hime. Lower your voice next time. The blonde man chided as he rubbed the inside of his ears. The girl blushed and rubbed the back of her head in embarrassment. Sorry daddy. Naruto timidly walked up to the man while avoiding all eye contact. Good evening Yamanaka-san. Inoichi saw how meek the boy was in his presence, so he put on a kind smile for the boy to lessen the tension, but on the inside he was frowning. Minato, Kushina, you'd be ashamed of what this village has done to your son. A good evening to you as well young man. And chin up alright, there's no need to feel afraid. Naruto slowly lifted his head to look at the man, an action made easier by the smile Inoichi was wearing, before he gave a brief nod. Good. He then extended his hand to the boy, to which the whiskered boy hesitantly took. With a handshake, he asked, so what might your name be? It's Naruto sir. Naruto Uzumaki. He answered while doing his best to keep eye contact. Inoichi let go of the boy's hand. Well Naruto, my name's Inoichi, and it is a pleasure to meet you. I have to thank you for keeping my daughter company today, and I apologize if she ended up talking your ear off. The cry of daddy rang through the playground. Ino Hime, deaf in this ear now. Pointing to his right ear. Ino folded her arms and huffed, good. That's what you get for embarrassing me. Inoichi rubbed the inside of his ear to try and clear it out while grumbling about spoiled blonde brats. Naruto awkwardly chuckled at the father-daughter duo and rubbed the back of his head. It was no trouble at all, Yamanaka-san. I didn't mind her talking. Naruto. Not you too. Do I really talk that much? Without missing a beat, both males answered. Yes. The girl pouted and huffed in embarrassment, you guys are meanies. Naruto and Inoichi chuckled at the girl's response. This being the first time he has had a positive interaction with an adult, aside from his Jiji, Bachan and Tuchi, Naruto was a little lost as to how to converse with the man. So he opted to just bid them farewell. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Yamanaka-san, but I have to get going now. He then looked up to Ino. I guess I'll see you around, Ino-chan. As Naruto moved to walk away he felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning around he saw that Ino's father had stopped him. Listen, as I said before there is no need to feel afraid alright. You're free to play with my daughter anytime you like. Naruto's face slowly brightened up, really? Inoichi gave him a kind smile, yes, really. Naruto's expression got brighter and brighter until a big smile found its way on his face. He felt overjoyed that he accepted his friendship with Ino. Not wanting to overreact, he settled for a quick bow to show his gratitude. Thank you, Yamanaka-san. It was no trouble at all my boy, and please, call me Inoichi. The man insisted. Naruto's head sprang up to show the jovial smile still on his face. Okay. He then looked up to the man's shoulders to see Ino and waved to her. Bye Ino-chan, I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye to you too Inoichi-san. With that, the young man ran off the playground and towards his home. As he left he could hear Ino yelling goodbye. Naruto watched the scene with a dumbfounded expression as his mind already pieced together what he was seeing. This is a he started but was unable to finish for he had to shield his eyes from another flash of bright light. As it died down he realized that he was still standing in the playground but now it was the next day. Naruto was sitting atop the jungle gym waiting for Ino to show up. He was contemplating what Inoichi had said the day prior and was silently thankful that the man didn't turn out like most of the village. I guess Gigi was right, there are good people here after all. He soon heard the pitter-patter of incoming footsteps and saw Ino running toward him. He watched as she got closer to the jungle gym before doing a single leap and landed on top of the jungle gym beside him before sitting down. "Morning Naruto-kun." She greeted before she then turned to look at the playground's entrance to see her dad. "Bye dad." Inoichi just waved goodbye and gave Naruto a thumbs up before he left. With her dad gone Ino returned her attention to Naruto. "So my cute little friend. What should we start with today?" "Oh, I know, how about the monkey bars?" Naruto waved his hand to say no, nah, I was thinking we could race on the slides again. That was fun. Ow, but I wanted to play on the monkey bars. Ino whined. "Maybe we can do that after." "No. We will do the monkey bars first, the slide can come second." But Naruto started. "No buts." Ino interrupted. "A gentleman always gives a lady what she wants." "I am a gentleman." Naruto defended before a smirk came to his lips, "But I don't see any ladies around," he said while pretending to search. A tick mark appeared on Ino's forehead and steam erupted from her ears at the implied insult. "Oh, you're so gonna get it, Naruto." She then tackled him and both fell off the jungle gym. Naruto fell on his back and Ino fell on top of him. As Naruto groaned in pain, he looked up and found pale blue eyes staring right into his. Wow. She's really pretty up close. Wow. Were his eyes always that blue? Both soon took notice of the position they were in and atomic blushes crept onto their faces. Ino was on top of him with her waist straddling his, her hands were pressed against his chest and her face was mere inches away from his. Naruto was the first one to sputter out his discomfort. I Ino-chan. CC can you get off me? P please. Why yeah, sure Naruto-kun. Slowly she got off of him and to her feet before she tentatively held out her hand to help him up. With Ino's help, Naruto got to his feet. Thanks Ino-chan. He then realized that she was still holding his hand. Ino, you can let go now. Ino briefly went wide-eyed before she quickly withdrew her hand and placed it behind her head in a sheepish manner. Yeah. Sorry about the whole tackling and falling on top of you thing. Yeah, it's okay. A full minute of awkward silence passed between the two blondes, neither sure of what to say. Another full minute passed before Naruto broke the deafening silence. So Ino-chan, you wanna go play on the slides now? Ino's awkwardness washed away as she sent him a small glare. She knew that she couldn't refuse him since she kind of owed him for what she did. But that still didn't placate how annoyed she was at being denied. She threw up her hands before folding them in resignation. Okay fine, you win. She then got right up in his face and poked his chest with her finger, but don't let it get to your head, Buster. This is the first and last time you'll ever get one over on me. Got that? The boy chuckled, whatever you say, Haim-sama. Speaking as if he were addressing a noble. He then gave an exaggerated bow and spoke in the same formal tone. Now if you and your royal butt don't mind, we have some fun to get to. He said looking up at her with a cheeky grin. Ino grumbled as she walked past the bowing boy, knowing that he was only teasing her. Well come on. The sooner we do this, the sooner we get to what I want to do. Humming Haim-sama. The boy further teased in a sing-song voice. As they walked to the slide, they caught sight of a girl with shoulder-length pink hair on the ground. Her knees were drawn up to her chest and she was pulling them close as if to protect herself. Her head was neatly tucked away between her knees and her hands were wrapped around them, further obscuring her face from view. Sakura Haruno was not having a good day. She had come to the playground with the hopes of having fun and making a few friends. But all of that went right out the gate once Ami and her band of bullies stepped onto the playground and caught sight of her. Now here she was, sitting on the ground curled up in a fetal position, with tears streaming down her face, while Ami and her friends were tormenting her. Hey look, she's crying. Ow, is the crybaby sad? Ami went over to the crying Pinkette, grabbed her by her hair, and roughly pulled her head up. Ow. That hurts, let go. The Pinkette cried out. Oh man, girls look here. Ami strengthened her grip on the girl's hair and pulled her head up some more before pointing at Sakura's face. I thought she was ugly before, but her tears made her even uglier. I didn't think that was even possible. The taunts and cruel childish laughter were a common occurrence when it came to this group. Ami and her 5 friends always found pleasure in making Sakura's life miserable at any chance they got, and since no one ever stopped them, they had free reign to do so anytime they wanted. Sakura pulled her hair from Ami's grip and re-hit her face. Trying to hide from us, huh? Not that you'll have much luck with a forehead like that. I bet you could see it all the way from Iowa. It would make a great billboard though. A light bulb went off in Ami's head. Hey girls, I got the perfect name for her billboard brow. Ah, billboard brow. It's perfect. All of them pointed their fingers at Sakura and started to chant. Billboard brow. Billboard brow. Billboard brow. Billboard brow. Hey. Leave her alone, you jerks. Hearing that voice, Ami rolled her eyes knowing exactly who it belonged to. She and her girls turned around and did their best to look as mean and smug as possible while glaring daggers at the blonde pariah. Ooh goody. Ami drawled in an annoyed tone, it's the village reject. You come here to save your little girlfriend, loser. The other girls started to laugh at this before adding their own 2 cents. Figures you two would be together. That's the saying is true, birds of a feather do flock together. The girls erupted into laughter at their insults. Naruto however didn't let their words nor their laughter rile him up though. At least she is way prettier than any of you could ever be. What? All the bullies yelled in indignation. Sakura, who was behind them, gained a tiny blush on her face. Yep, and unlike all of you, she's not pathetic. The boy further insulted. The girls all gasped and were about to give the boy a piece of their minds, but Naruto didn't allow them to get a word in. Unlike you lot who going around tormenting others for your own sick pleasure, I can tell that she's just a sweet girl who was only trying to make friends. So aside from being prettier than you, he then winked at the Pinkette, who blushed in response, she's also a better person to be around. He finished with a satisfied smirk. The 6 girls were red with anger. A fire burned in their eyes as they cracked their knuckles menacingly. We're gonna make you eat those words, loser. Ami threatened in an angry tone. Naruto pulled down one of his eyelids and stuck his tongue out at them, only if you can catch me, you ugly, pathetic jerks. The boy taunted before he ran off laughing. Bet him? Ami yelled. But that order all the girls gave chase, intent on making him pay for his insults. Sakura watched as the girls completely forgot about her and took off after the blonde boy. At first, she was fearful that he may have ended up joining the girls in picking on her. That fear turned to gratitude once she realized that he was just trying to help her, but now she was feeling worried and somewhat guilty for what those girls would do once they caught him. PSSST. Sakura nearly jumped out of her skin once she heard that. She quickly turned around to find a short blonde-haired girl behind her. Hey, take it easy and don't freak out, okay? The blonde girl said in a placating tone. Sakura nodded slowly before taking a few deep breaths to calm herself. They didn't hurt you, did they? The blonde girl asked while looking her over. And no. They didn't hit me or anything, they were just picking on me. Ino smiled and said, that's good, but you're still dirty though. Let's go get you cleaned up while we wait for my friend to come back. You know him? Sakura asked. Yep. He's the one who decided to distract those bullies while I came to help you. Ino explained. Sakura was surprised that they were willing to help her. Most others just ignored her whenever she was picked on. Thanks for helping me. It's fine really. Ino began before she realized, oh, where are my manners? I'm Ino Yamanaka. I am Sakura Haruno. After that, Ino brought Sakura to the restroom and got her cleaned up. When they exited a few minutes later, they found Naruto leaning against a tree waiting for them. Hey, you're back. Ino said. Yep, didn't take too long for me to ditch them. Naruto replied. Naruto, this is Sakura. Ino introduced since despite helping her, he didn't know her name. Nice to meet ya. The blonde boy greeted. Likewise. Sakura responded before giving a small bow. Thank you for helping me. It's fine. He then winked at her. Besides, I can't see a pretty girl in trouble and not help her out. Sakura lowered her head to hide the blush. Thanks for the compliment. Her blush was then replaced by a sullen expression. But I'm not pretty. What makes you believe that? An intrigued Ino asked while Naruto listened carefully. Sakura kept her head lowered and spoke in a low, self-deprecating tone. I'm not pretty because of my forehead. I'm always bullied because of it and get told that it's what makes me so ugly. A few tears escaped her now shut eyes. So while I thank you for the compliments, please don't waste them on me. Sakura kept her head down and her teary eyes closed, not wanting to see the looks of pity she believed they were no doubt giving her. She heard the sound of footsteps as well as when they stopped just in front of her. Her eyes snapped open and a jolt of surprise went through her body when she felt a finger touch her chin. That surprise only increased when the finger gently raised her head until she was face to face with blonde hair, blue eyes, whiskers, and a warm smile. Before she could say anything, he leaned forward and pressed his lips against her forehead. Sakura's eyes widened and a deep red blush appeared on her face. Naruto pulled back and looked directly into Sakura's eyes before speaking in a soft tone. Don't listen to anyone who says you're ugly, alright? Anyone who is dumb enough to say that is obviously blind, for you are the prettiest girl I have ever seen. Unknown to him, Ino was behind him with an annoyed expression on her face, a tick mark on her forehead, and a violently twitching eyebrow. Prettiest girl he's ever seen, huh? And you have such a charming forehead, I couldn't help but kiss it. Sakura was close to mimicking a ripe cherry at this point. So don't be ashamed of your forehead, if anything it only makes you prettier. Sakura closed her eyes and wiped away her tears, thanks for that. No problem. Now since we still haven't started our day of fun yet, why don't you pick out what we play on first? Sakura brightened up at that and quickly gave her suggestion. Ooh oh, I always wanted to try the monkey bars. Can we do that first? Naruto's eyebrow lightly twitched, what is with these girls and monkey bars? He then forced a smile on his face, of course we can. Ino walked up to Sakura, flashed Naruto a cocky grin as she passed him, which he returned with a small glare, and draped a hand over the pinkette's shoulder. Sakura my dear, you and I will get along just fine. Was her intelligent reply. Another flash obscured Naruto's vision, and when it subsided he found himself in the sewer tunnel, facing the now closed door. That was 5 years ago. It was a memory. But I couldn't have viewed it like that unless he stopped mid-sentence, as a look of realization crept onto his face, unless I was inside my mind. How perceptive. A deep booming voice commented. Naruto looked around in fright to see what that was, but there was no one else around. Who said that? I'm that dark secret no one is willing to tell you. Follow the tunnel if you want to learn the truth. Naruto was feeling apprehensive about whether or not he should follow the mysterious voice, so he asked. How do I know that you won't just hurt me? The voice chuckled before giving its answer. Believe me. With where I am, I couldn't hurt you even if I wanted to. Naruto still wasn't sure on whether or not he should trust what that voice was saying, but ultimately decided to follow it. As he walked through the tunnel and was steadily getting closer to the source of the mysterious voice, his mind drifted to the memory he just revisited. A smile came onto his face as he recalled the times he had with them. They were by far the best moments of his life. After that day they were practically inseparable, they did pretty much everything together. It also helped that both of the girls' parents actually liked him and treated him fairly. They even recognized the unfairness of the villagers and helped him out where they could. For 5 months he experienced what it was like to be a normal kid. The villagers still despised him, but with the acceptance of the Harunos and the Yamanakas and by extension the Naras and the Kimichis, he no longer cared about them. Things were going well until it happened. The event that tore all of that down in one fell swoop. His smile faded into a frown as he recalled what happened. No. He shook his head to clear those thoughts from his mind, I refuse to think about that. His trek through the water-laden tunnel ended when he entered a large room that had slightly better lighting than the tunnel. What caught his attention, however, were the massive set of gates. That's where the voice is coming from. Right again, Naruto-kun. The baffled expression came over the boy's face. Wait, hold up. Did you just read your thoughts? The voice finished. Why yes, I did Naruto-kun. We are inside your mind after all. No thought is private in here. Noted. Well, I guess this is where the big reveal happens. The voice said, and if Naruto wasn't mistaken, the voice sounded vaguely feminine. Boom, whoa. Naruto said as the room shook and he almost lost his balance. Boom, boom, boom. The mysterious and obviously large figure was now close enough for Naruto to start making out its features. His eyes gradually widened as he took note of the figure's appearance. Red-orange fur, crimson-red eyes, long bunny-like ears, razor-sharp teeth, the size of a mountain, and 9 tails swing behind it. Naruto was stunned into silence, for he was looking at the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Kyuubi for its part was silently amused at the boy's reaction. What's wrong Naruto-kun? Fox got your tongue. It then made a sound that one would think such a beast would never make. It giggled. Naruto shook himself out of his stunned stupor and folded his arms while putting on a neutral expression. So, I have the Kyuubi sealed inside of me, huh? If the beast had hands, it would have applauded the on-point deduction, spot on Naruto-kun. But would you be a dear and tell me, just how did you come to that conclusion? For all you know this could be a dream. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the beast's choice of words, but chose not to comment. Well for starters as you pointed out, we are inside my mind, and I doubt everyone has a Biju locked up in their mindscape. The blonde pointed out. That managed to get a chuckle out of the ancient beast. Secondly, he then pointed a thumb at the piece of paper joining the gates, that piece of paper marked seal, is kind of a dead giveaway. Couple that with my birthday which so happens to fall on the day you attacked, well it becomes a no-brainer. I see. Very perceptive indeed. The beast commented, clearly pleased with its container. No more words were said, and pretty soon a few minutes passed in complete silence, as both beast and boy had a silent stare down. You surprise me, Naruto-kun. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the beast's sudden comment. What do you mean? I'm sure that sharp mind of yours has already figured out that I'm the reason why this village despises you. The Bijuu's words were met with a slow nod. So here I am, the monster that laid waste to your village, the very architect of all your pain and suffering. Its tone then became one of intrigue. Yet you stand there in my presence, completely calm and not lashing out at me. The beast then tilted its head to display its confusion. Why is that? Naruto shrugged before giving his answer. The fact that you've asked me such a question tells me that you're not some savage, mindless beast, and that you are in fact intelligent. Also throughout this little encounter, you've been, for the lack of a better term, docile. You don't strike me as the type that would seek out trouble unless necessary. So there must have been another reason for your attack. And yes, well, I should be mad at you for my shoddy hand in life. Standing here and yelling accusations at you ain't exactly gonna get me somewhere. So I see no reason to waste my time doing that. Very mature for your age. Naruto once again shrugged. Meh, it comes with a lifestyle. Indeed. And you are in fact correct. There was another reason for my attack, but it wasn't my reason, so to speak. It didn't take long for Naruto to pick up on what the beast hinted at. Someone else was pulling the strings. He deduced. Yes again. But it seems that story will have to wait for another time. Naruto was about to ask what the beast meant, but he then noticed how his body was gradually fading away. What is happening? Don't worry my dear, you're just waking up is all. Oh. The boy responded. Oh well. The beast then laid down and rested its massive head on its forelegs. Until we meet again Naruto-kun. The boy gave a brief nod before fading away completely. But the boy gone, Kyuubi now had time to properly recuperate. It had expended 2 entire tails worth of chakra throughout the incident, 1 tail's worth just to keep him stable throughout the torturous ordeal, and a second tail just to make sure he didn't die afterward. Coincidentally it was this second tail of chakra, coupled with the boy's anger that had led to the premature awakening of his bloodline. 2 tails of chakra may not have been a great loss, but it was enough to warrant the beast some rest. Just as the beast was getting ready to doze off, it took notice of a figure in the dark corner of the room. You know, instead of being a creep, you could have come out and said something. I'm sure he would have loved to learn about his bloodline. The figure shrugged before speaking in a male voice. I could have, but I felt it best to stay on the sidelines for the time being. He will learn of my existence soon enough. Besides, after this incident, Hiruzen will have no choice but to inform him. The Kyuubi batted its eyelashes before rolling its eyes. Whatever you say, you walking bug zapper. Now, will you please leave, I have beauty sleep to catch up on. The figure chuckled, as you wish, Kiyomi-san. He then vanished in a flash of lightning. Finally alone, the ancient beast closed its eyes and in the next few minutes drifted off to sleep. The first thing he saw upon opening his eyes was a white concrete ceiling. Ugh, where am I? A bitter antiseptic and artificial scent assaulted his nostrils. Beep beep beep, and the constant beeping of a patient monitor rang aloud in his ears. The hospital. He gave out in a low hoarse voice. Great, I'm back in this last stop before the afterlife. Lifting his head off his soft pillow, he looked himself over and took note of his bandages. Bandages were wrapped around his arms, legs and torso. Lifting one of his arms, he felt around his head and his hand touched another bandage. With a dreary sigh, he laid his head back down on the pillow. The bastards really did a number on me, eh? But they did. A female voice answered. Now closing the door to the room was a woman with light brown skin and long brown hair that was done in a high ponytail. She had visible creases at the corners of her eyes and her mouth that showed her age. She was wearing a purple kimono-like dress, along with a white haori and sandals. In his raspy voice. Bawako Bachan. Before answering him, Bawako took a glass from the bedside and filled it with water before handing it to the young man. Here you go. The boy took the cup and drank the water in one go. He gave the now empty cup back to her and spoke in a clearer tone. Thanks. The old lady nodded before putting the cup back on the table and sitting in the bedside chair. How long was I out? A good night to you as well, Naruto-kun. Forgotten your manners have you? The brunette playfully chided. Naruto smiled bashfully. Good night to you as well, Bachan. Now that's better. The elderly lady then walked up to his bedside. As for your question, you've been unconscious for a full day now. A whole day huh? Well at least the Naruto's eyes then widened and he shot up straight in the bed. The girls. His heart thumped erratically against his chest. What happened to them? Where are they? Are they hurt? Understanding the young man's panic and concern, Bawako gently placed her hand on top of his head and rubbed it, a gesture that had the effect of calming the boy down. Both of them are okay. Aside from the head injury Ino received, they are fine. She then turned and pointed to the wall to the right of his bed. If it will quell your worries, just know that they are 2 rooms down from here. Naruto could feel his heart rate steadily going back to normal as he took a few calming breaths. Thanks, Bachan. It was no trouble, my dear. She then placed a hand on his shoulder and gently pushed him to lay back on the bed. Now rest. Your body still needs time to heal. I'll be back to see you in the morning. Naruto gave her a small nod as his eyes started to feel heavy. Within a few minutes his eyes were closed and a low snore escaped his mouth, signifying that he was asleep. Running her hand through his hair, feeling its soft and coarse texture, she was reminded that it was only a few hours prior where she was washing the dried blood out of it. Leaning over, she kissed him on his forehead before walking to the door. Opening the door, she spared one more glance at her godson before letting out a small sigh. Closing the door, she walked away with a small frown marring her features. "I may love you death, Hirokoi, but you were a fool to let that stupid council bully us out of our rights." Chapter 3. Upon leaving the hospital, Bawako decided to go to her husband's office, figuring that with the recent incident, he wouldn't have gone home yet. The streets were near barren, save for the few establishments that operated at these hours. With the moon nowhere on the horizon, the street lights were the only source of illumination for the dark streets. But no real need to watch where she was going, the elderly lady allowed her mind to wander. She thought back to her godson that was laid up in a hospital bed. For some time now, she couldn't get over the feeling that something was amiss, that something was just wrong. It had only been a little under a year since the attack started up again, and initially, she had nothing to worry about, for Naruto was capable of defending himself, and proved that when he successfully fended off a few attacks long enough for his Anbu guards to show up and apprehend the assailants. On top of that, the Anbu guards proved their worth by quickly and efficiently putting a halt to any other attack that may happen. But there were those handful of instances, just a few times, where the attacks were successful and her godson suffered dearly for it. What was even stranger was that Naruto seemed to have almost no recollection of what happened. He knew that he was attacked, but it was as if he couldn't remember the events leading up to it and even those that happened during the attack. The first time it happened, she didn't think too much into it and figured that he suffered a hit to his head that made him forget what happened, but when it happened the next 3 consecutive times where he was still unable to properly recall what happened, that was when she knew that something was amiss. There was also the fact that there wasn't a pattern for each successful attack. The second happened only a month after the first. The third 5 months after the second. The fourth 2 months after the prior attack, and this most recent one, only a mere 3 weeks since the last. Her husband even had his best T&I operatives grill Squad Nezu to see if they had something to do with it, but each time they came up squeaky clean, not even having Inoichi dive into their memories, dug up any dirt on them. The fact that they did their job so diligently with only those few hiccups only added to their near spotless record. So with that fact in mind, Hiruzen didn't have a good enough reason to just up and replace them, since he needed every able-bodied shinobi he could get. And it wasn't like the villagers had stopped their endeavors to avenge their fallen loved ones during those time gaps. They had still tried on and off to go after Naruto, but were unsuccessful due to Squad Nezu's interference. So it really seemed as if those instances where they succeeded was just pure luck coincidence. Both she and her husband had long since come to the conclusion that there had to be a third party involved. But with Naruto being unable to remember anything and mind walks proving ineffective, since each time Inoichi was unable to retrieve anything useful, they didn't have any evidence to narrow down the suspect pool. For no matter how Hiruzen wished it were the opposite, the number of people who hated the boy was still at an all-time high. The lady yawned and rubbed the bags under her eyes. "Best to think of this after I've had some rest," she thought as her exhaustion was catching up to her. It was a hassle to get to work on Naruto. For one, he had to be brought to the hospital in a ceiling scroll, since it was too risky to carry him normally due to his electrified state. When he was brought in and unsealed, his body kept shorting out and exploding their equipment. On top of that, anyone who tried to get close to him were immediately electrocuted and left spasming on the floor. So while they waited for Naruto's apparent bloodline to subside, they had to work on their own injured staff to keep them alive. It wasn't until 2 hours had passed before it was safe enough for them to work on him. Luckily his tenant already had a head start in healing him, so she didn't have that much to worry about. Seeing her destination come into view, she came out of her thoughts and proceeded to scale the tower until she made it to her husband's office. Opening the door, she found her husband out of his seat and looking out the large window, down on his village with his hands behind his back. "Leave us," the lady ordered. 4 hidden figures in the room nodded affirmatively before flickering away. "How's Naruto?" the old man asked without turning around. "He's fine. A little banged up but nothing he won't pull through," she answered. "And the girls?" he further inquired. "Physically speaking they're okay, aside from the head injury that Ino suffered. It's a little too early to call, but at best she'll have some head pains when she wakes up. I see that you didn't mention Sakura," the old man noticed. The wacko paused and let out a small sigh before answering. "She's going to have some trust issues with men for some time." While they were unable to go through with the heinous act, the experience really shook her up. "We had to put her into a medically induced sleep to get her to calm down." I see," the old man said in a low crestfallen tone. "We need to find out why this keeps happening. We can't let it happen again." The Sandame nodded. "I already have my personal Anbu doing an investigation. Hopefully they'll be able to find something this time." After that, there was a pregnant pause in the room. There was one more thing that Bawako needed to speak to Hiruzen about. Dear, I believe it's time we come clean to Naruto about everything. His parents, our connection to him as well the burden he is carrying. We've kept him in the dark long enough. Hiruzen turned to face his wife. I'm not so sure that's a good idea, Haim. The wacko quickly grew irritated. Why? Because that stupid council said so? No. The aged leader quickly answered. I agree that he does deserve to know about his parents as well as his burden, but he paused and let out a tired breath. I don't know if we should tell him about us. The wacko lost her temper and looked at her husband with realization in her eyes. This isn't about the council, is it? Hiruzen looked back at his wife before averting his gaze. No. I've long since realized my mistake in letting that foolish council push me around. The wacko walked a little closer to him. Then what is it about? The old man heaved a weary sigh and removed the Hokage's hat from his head, replacing the hardened war veteran that was the Sandaime Hokage with the tired elderly man that is Hiruzen Sarutobi. Tell me, Biwaheim. How would you feel if from the first time you were cognizant enough to understand the world around you the most prominent thing you've ever known is hate? Time goes on and you have lived 12 years of your life like that, being hated and shunned for some reason that you are unaware of, with the occasional break being the few people that see you for who you are. Tell me how you would feel if after so much time has passed, you learn that you have godparents who were there the entire time and should have been doing more to help you. But we have helped him, Hiruzen. Hiruzen lightly shook his head with a self-depreciating sigh. As his godparents we haven't done nearly enough as we should have. The old man averted his gaze. I made a promise to his mother during her final moments that I would take care of her son, and so far, all I've done is fail him, time and time again. But I can agree that we should have been more active in his life, and that was pretty much out of our control. We have helped him where he needed it the most. The wacko countered. Compared to me, you have done more for him than I have. I believe you're selling yourself short, dear. Tell me, when the orphanage mistreated him and refused to keep him any longer, who was it that gave him an apartment and made sure to keep paying for everything so he wouldn't have to? Hiruzen didn't answer. The wacko took a step closer. When the store owners tried to be unfair to him or refused him, service who put the fear of Kami into them to make them do better? Hiruzen didn't answer. The wacko took another step closer. Now standing in front of him, she placed her hand on his shoulder. I want you to tell me, who is it that would always take even just a few minutes out of his day to let his godson know that he has someone who cares about him? Hiruzen didn't answer. Hiruzen, answer me. The old lady prodded. He didn't. Hiruzen, answer me. The old lady prodded in a sterner tone. Exhaling a small sigh, the old man relented. I did. Yes. You did. She then took both of his hands in hers and made him look at her. I know that you're afraid that you'll lose the relationship you have with Naruto if we tell him the truth, for it's a fear I have as well, but we can't let that stop us from doing the right thing, and right now, the right thing is to tell him what he deserves to know. Hiruzen listened to his wife's words before closing his eyes and nodding. The wacko then took the Hokage hat off the desk. Now that is done, I believe you still have paperwork to do. She then placed the hat back on his head, Sandaime-sama. The old lady finished in a teasing tone. The aged leader snorted. Don't remind me. He then smiled and captured her lips in a quick kiss before wrapping his arms around her. Thank you. I needed to hear that. The wacko returned the hug. No problem, Hirokoi. Just then, a purple-haired Anbu bearing the Nico mask flickered into the room. Pardon the intrusion, Hokage-sama, the wacko-sama, but I believe we found something rather important. Hiruzen let go of his wife and stood in front of his subordinate. Show me. Hi. Nico then took 4 objects from a ceiling scroll and showed them to her leader. These were found at the scene. The wacko's eyes momentarily widened. Aren't those? Yes. Hiruzen quickly answered before his gaze narrowed. Can you confirm that these belong to them? Hi, sir. The residual chakra left on these perfectly matches those of Squad Nezu. The atmosphere of the room got tense as Hiruzen spoke again. It seems that Squad Nezu has some explaining to do. The girl was lying on her back on the dirty floor of a dark room that was only illuminated by a small lamp. She could feel her head throbbing as if her brain was pounding against its confinement. Her breaths were coming out in wheezes, and she could feel the swelling and the pain that was centered around her right eye. Like the rest of her body and clothing, her platinum blonde hair was now callous, rough and matted with dirt. She coughed and droplets of saliva as well as blood came flying out her mouth. She then pleaded in a small, timid, almost vulnerable tone. Please, I beg of you. Stop. Her plea was met with a harsh kick to the side of her abdomen, adding another bruise to the many that were already littering her small body. Groans of pain came out of her mouth as she felt the bones of her ribsage almost buckle under force from the man's kick. Why should I stop? An older male voice spoke. We're just teaching you what happens to those who choose to befriend demon filth. But he's not a demon. The girl countered. The man shook his head as if he were disappointed. TSK, TSK, TSK. You don't learn, do you? He finished that sentence with another kick to the girl's abdomen, this time sending her small frame tumbling along the dirt-covered floor before she came to a stop lying face down. Tears leaked from her eyes as a myriad of coughs erupted from her mouth. She moved her hand to put some pressure on her side and instantly regretted it. The moment her hand touched the area, it flared up in pain causing her to groan and to grit her teeth to bear it. One of her ribs was definitely broken. Feeling the desperate need to get away, she willed her weak body to move. As she moved to push herself up with her left leg, crunch, ah. The blonde cried out as she felt the bones in her leg snap under the man's foot. Now where were you going? The black-haired man asked in an amused tone. No. A pink-haired girl cried out from inside a metal cage. Bang. The brown-haired man hit the cage to silence the girl. Shut up. It's your own fault that we've had to go this far. The pink-haired girl looked at her captor with fear in her eyes. Slowly, she returned her vision to her friend and she could only watch with tears streaming down her face as the black-haired man continued his assault. Another kick sent the blonde girl tumbling once more, but this time she came to a stop on her back with her arms splayed out at her sides. Ino was sobbing and wheezing as she watched the black-haired man walk up to her with a sinister smile on his face. Please. She begged one more time. He chuckled as he lifted his leg over her face. As my friend said, it's your own fault. He said before bringing his foot down. Ino woke with a start, cold sweat dripping down her face and her heart pounding against her chest as if she had just ran a marathon. Rapid and shallow breaths rushed from her lungs as the hairs on her neck stood at full attention. Was that a dream? It felt so real. The hand touched her shoulder and in her panic state, Ino frantically slapped the hand away and looked to see who it was that touched her. A male figure was seated in the bedside chair. He had long ash blonde hair that was tied in a high ponytail and his skin was of a tanned complexion. His eyes were dark navy blue, so dark that if you were to look into them, they almost looked black. He wore the standard Jonin uniform, the only differences being his flak jacket which was dark pine green and his obsidian black sleeveless jacket. Uncle Omo? You're back. Ino said in surprise. The now identified Omo Yamanaka smiled at his niece as he lightly rubbed the hand she slapped. That I am. I got back in last night. Though I don't think I like this particular welcome. A small blush of embarrassment appeared on Ino's face. Sorry about that. The older man waved it off. Nah, it's okay. So you mind telling me what had you so spooked? It must have been bad if it had you that panicked. Ino faltered a bit here. Not sure if she wanted to tell him or not. Not that she didn't trust him, it was the fact that she wasn't exactly sure what it was she saw, if it was a dream or something else. Before she could make up her mind, the door opened and in walked her parents Inoichi and Ilyana Yamanaka, as well as Sakura's parents Kizashi and Miyuki Haruno. Following them was a female doctor. Knowing what was gonna come next, Omo got up out of the chair and stood back. Not even a moment later, his brother breezed past him and grabbed his niece in a bear hug. I'm so happy that my Haim is okay. You have no idea how worried I was when I heard what happened. Inoichi said as he hugged his daughter tightly, much to the amusement of the others present. Ah Addie. Air. Ino managed to get out as her face started to turn blue. Inoichi dear, I think you're suffocating our little Haim. Ilyana said in an amused tone. Inoichi immediately let go with an embarrassed blush on his face. Sorry about that Ino Haim. I was just so worried about you. As her natural color came back to her face, Ino replied. It's alright, Tusa. What the hell? She clutched the sides of her head as it suddenly flared up with pain. The doctor that was accompanying the parents quickly sprang into action and got a glass of water and handed it to the girl with 2 pills. Here, take these. They'll help with the pain. Without hesitation, Ino took the pills and downed them along with entire glass of water. In the next few moments, she felt her splitting headache slowly fade away until it was gone completely. Doctor, what happened to her? Ilyana asked. That is a result of the hit she took to the back of her head. We'll need to do some more tests to find out the true extent of her injury. But for now I think it's safe to assume that headaches will be worst of it hopefully. The doctor added at the end. Everyone gave her deadpan looks. Comforting. Miyuki quipped. The doctor lightly chuckled to herself. Please call me or one of the other staff if anything happens. With her piece said, she exited the room. Gave us quite the scare there, kiddo. Omo spoke up. That's when everyone realized that there was someone else in the room. Omo. Brother, when did you get back? Inoichi asked as pulled his brother into a hug. Been a while, hasn't it Ataudo? Omo said as he patted his brother on the back a few times before letting go. As I was telling Ino-chan here, I got back in last night. I heard what happened and popped in to visit her a little bit before you guys showed up. Well, I'm glad you're back. We have to catch up once we get this mess sorted out. Inoichi stated. Sure thing, Ataudo. Omo replied. Oh, by the way, I should tell you that I bagged some sasanqua flower seeds a few weeks back on a mission. You gotta be kidding me. I've been trying for months to find that one for my collection. Where'd you find it? Omo asked. I could tell you, Inoichi smirked, for a price. Omo laughed. Name it. Inoichi grinned. I wanna know where you found those Amaradana seeds. Deal. And there they go. I swear it's like when one sees the other, the rest of the world just disappears. Ilyana said with a roll of her eyes. The brothers both chuckled and rubbed the back of their heads sheepishly. Ino giggled at their antics. With Mibuyuki, Kizashi and Sakura. While the Yamanakas were chatting away, Sakura's parents had gone over to their still sleeping daughter. Mibuyuki sat on the bedside chair while Kizashi went on the other side and gently shook his daughter awake. Sakura's eyes slowly fluttered open and she let out a low yawn. Good morning, Sakura. The pincat went as stiff as a board upon hearing the male voice. With her hair trait steadily increasing, she looked up and through foggy eyes, she recognized the male figure. It's okay, Sakura. It's me, Tusan. Kizashi said in a reassurance as he tentatively placed his hand on her shoulder, to which Sakura had to fight down the impulse to flinch. I'm here as well, Sakura. Mibuyuki said as she placed her hand on her daughter's head and lightly rubbed it. We won't let anyone hurt you. Realizing she was safe, the pincat allowed herself to calm down. Thanks. And sorry for it's just her eyes started to fill with tears and her lips started to tremble as she found it hard to continue that line of speech. It's alright, dear. The doctors gave us a good idea of what happened. Kizashi said. Sakura nodded. She then leaned over to her mother and wrapped her arms around her, with tears rolling down her cheeks. They almost the words died in her throat and were replaced by sobs as she recalled what almost happened to her. With an angry scowl on his face, Kizashi folded his fists tightly at his sides and cursed under his breath. Bastards, every single one of them. Mibuyuki held her daughter close to her and rubbed her back in a comforting motion. SSHH. It's okay. It's alright, dear. You're fine now and we'll never let anything like that happen to you again. Do you hear me? We won't let anything happen to you. Sakura nodded in the crook of her mother's neck and continued to let her tears flow. The Yamanakas had ceased their chatter and had witnessed the scene with their family friends. Omo looked to his brother. I heard bits and pieces of what happened the other night, but would you guys mind filling me in on the real story? I'm kinda lost here. Sakura and Ino winced slightly as they recalled what happened. Inoichi sighed and rubbed the middle of his forehead. I'm in the same boat as you right now. Like you, I only heard bits and pieces of what really happened. But from what I was able to gather, their classmate Naruto was attacked and somehow the girls ended up getting involved. You mean the Kaiu was as far as Omo got before Inoichi cut him off with a small glare, so he quickly corrected himself. That prankster who switched your shampoo with green-haired dye and painted a monkey's ass on your face. This managed to cut through some of the tension that permeated the room and had all of them laughing at Inoichi's expense, even Sakura managed to crack a smile. Inoichi's eyebrows twitched at that not-so-fond memory. He didn't even notice the damage until he walked in for work that morning, and because of that brat, he was the laughing stock of the entire T&I department for over a month. Anko even snapped a few photos in case she ever needed some leverage over her boss. Yes. Him. Inoichi grumbled under his breath. So what did he do this time to end up in here? Omo asked in an intrigued tone. We don't know. That's part of the reason why I'm here. Aside from checking up on the girls, Hokage-sama asked me to get the girls' statements of what they witnessed. The T&I operative said as he took out a small recording device. I'll be getting Naruto's after I'm done with the girls. Like hell you are. Kizashi, Ilyana and Mibuyuki all yelled, making Inoichi cringe at their volume. The girls just went through a harrowing experience, so I think that it's way too soon for you to be questioning them about it. Ilyana berated. I'm sorry, alright. I wouldn't be asking this of them now if I didn't have to, but this is a direct order from Hokage-sama. Inoichi countered. And it couldn't wait. Kizashi asked with a noticeable bite in his tone. I wish it could, but the longer I wait to get their statements, the more likely the chance of them not recalling the events accurately. Ilyana and Kizashi went silent. They knew that Inoichi was only doing his job, even if it displeased them at the moment. Mibuyuki however was more open about her displeasure. No. That old goat can take his orders and shove em right up that wrinkly ass of his. The girls will talk when they're ready to, and that's final. Mom. Mibuyuki turned around to face her daughter. Don't worry, honey. You won't have to talk about it until you're ready. No, Mom. It's okay, I'll talk. The pincat said with some trepidation leaking into her tone. Are you sure, dear? You don't have to if you don't want to. Mibuyuki tried to reassure. Yeah, she took a deep breath. I'm sure. Ilyana looked at Ino. And you, dear? Ino nodded. Yeah, Mom. I'm okay to talk. Inoichi let out a breath of relief and Omo chuckled while patting his little brother's back. Good. Inoichi said before he set the device on Ino's bedside table and sat in the chair. Now let's begin. It took about 20 minutes in total to get both of the girls' statements and to clarify that their recollection of the events were accurate. When he was done, he turned off the device and put it back in his flak jacket pocket. He got up and rubbed the bridge of his nose. They really were trying to kill him this time. Pretty much all of the adults were having similar thoughts, all of them wondering how an entire village could spit upon the wishes of their supposed greatest hero like that. Dad? Sakura called. Yes, Sakura. Kizashi answered. Why were those people torturing Naruto? All the adults in the room tensed up at that question. I don't really know, dear. Must have something to do with the pranks he loves pulling. The pink-haired man answered with a nervous chuckle. No, you're lying. There's something about Naruto that you're not telling us. Ino spoke up. I caught Uncle Omo's slip before Daddy made him change what he was gonna say, and just now when Sakura asked about what happened, all of you visibly tensed up. The blonde girl then furrowed her brow. So what's so bad about Naruto that people would try to kill him for it and you guys are apparently afraid to tell us? Quite the keen observer you got there, Inoichi. Omo commented. Said man shot his brother a glare. You're not helping. Omo saw the glare his brother was giving him as well as the looks the other adults were sending his way. What? She already figured out that you guys were lying and given the nature of what her and her friend witnessed, they are going to have questions. So sooner or later they are gonna learn the truth about their classmate one way or another. You know we can't tell them about that. Kizashi said. Tell us about what? Sakura asked. Yeah. What's so bad about Naruto that you have to hide it from us? Ino added. The adults, sans Omo, shot glances at each other as if debating on what they should do. Eventually after a few minutes had passed, Ilyana, Mibuyuki and Kizashi all gave Inoichi a reluctant nod. The blonde man sighed and rubbed his eyes before nodding and taking a seat. Okay, listen. I can't tell you the exact truth surrounding Naruto because if I did, I'd be executed for it. The girls gasped in shock. You're kidding, right? It's that serious? Ino asked. Inoichi nodded. Yes. So do understand that what I'm about to tell you is not going to be the full truth. The girls looked at each other before they looked back at Inoichi and nodded. Taking this as his cue, Inoichi began. You see, on the day that Naruto was born he paused to come up with a good way to phrase his next words. Well, let's just say that there was an incident where a lot of good people were killed, including Naruto's parents who were loved by the village. Now because Naruto survived that day and so many others didn't, he became something of a living constant reminder of that event. Needing something, or in this case someone to take out their negative emotions on, the villagers chose Naruto to be their lightning rod, so to speak. The blonde man paused and held down his head while running a hand through blonde tresses. Unfortunately, they never learned to accept their losses and move on. They were and still are pretty much stuck in a perpetual state of grieving, and over the years their grieving turned to hate, and as I'm sure you figured it out already, that hate ended up getting thrown on Naruto. So they hate Naruto for something that was completely out of his control. Ino surmised. The adults all nodded. But that can't be right. I mean there has to be some people who know better than to blame a kid for something he didn't do. Sakura stated before looking at her parents for confirmation. Right. It was Kizashi who answered. Yes, you are right about that, but sadly those people are in the minority when compared to the vast majority of people who harbor hatred for him. Quite. That's what the girls were upon learning the truth, well, part of the truth about their blonde classmate. The revelation that the boisterous and exuberant blonde boy leads such a hate-filled life made them reflect on the way they treated him. Sure, he wasn't someone they would seek to befriend, seeing as how much of a troublemaker he was, constantly getting himself in trouble, not exactly the best student, in fact he was far from it, and how annoying he could be with his brash personality, but now learning more about him, it made them think that they could have at least tried to be friendlier to him, even just a little bit. I know that my explanation was pretty vague, but it's all I'm allowed to tell you. Even so, I want to assure you that it is the truth. Inoichi said, looking at both of the girls. The girls looked back on him and slowly nodded. Inoichi then got up and moved to leave the room. Feel free to think more on it if you want to, the law may prevent me from telling you the truth, but it can't stop you from figuring out for yourselves. In the meantime, I'm going to go see Naruto. I'll come with. Omo said as he fell in step with his brother. Inoichi nodded and just before he walked through the door, he turned and said. Be back in a few. Before he and Omo walked out and closed the door behind them. The Hokage's office. So, is that your full report on the incident? A stoic Hiruzen asked his Anbu team as he put their written report to the side. Hi, Hokage-sama. No detail was left out. The one bearing the mask of a nezu answered, with the other three members of his squad nodding in agreement. I see. The aged leader's eyes narrowed for a few moments before he spoke again. Tell me again, how did you lose track of Naruto when you were the ones in charge of keeping him safe? We were watching him as per usual. He was in the process of setting up one more of his pranks when he apparently caught sight of us, given that he locked eyes with me for a few seconds before he took off running. We pursued him, but you know how slippery he is and how it is actually a challenge to keep up with him at times. We ended up losing him about 10 minutes after the pursuit began. After that we searched for him but didn't find him until his chakra spiked when his apparent bloodline awakened. That's when we came upon the scene of the attack and immediately took him and the girls to the hospital for treatment. Nezu quickly explained. And the rest of you can confirm that your leader's explanation is 100% fact. The Sandame asked the rest of the team, who all quickly responded with, "Hi, Hokage-sama. I see." He then leaned back in his chair. Well, it is unfortunate that Naruto has gone through another of these experiences. I'm just happy that he is still alive and that I can count on you four to be there to get him out of trouble. All four Anbu bowed to their leader. You honor us, Hokage-sama. The one bearing the Jakara mask remarked. The old man nodded. Very well then. Feel free to take the next few days off. That's how long it will take before he is cleared to leave the hospital. Thank you, Hokage-sama. They all chorused before moving to flicker out of the room. Hold on. Do forgive me but there is something that I forgot to ask. The old man said to stop them from leaving. What do you need to be answered, Hokage-sama? The one bearing the Kumo mask asked. The old man reached into his drawer and took out 4 pieces of paper with a sealing matrix visible on each. What are these? He asked as he put the sealing tags on his desk in plain view for them to see. All 4 members of the Anbu squad felt their blood run cold when they saw those tags. They all shared one thought, shit. Come now. You've been answering very astutely throughout your report. Surely such a simple question shouldn't leave you with such a loss for words. The man said in a casual manner. Alright, Hokage-sama. It just caught us off guard for a second there. I didn't think that you'd need us to tell you that those are silencing tags, sir. Nezu responded. The old man chuckled. Well, you'll have to forgive me. I'm getting up in my years and certain things are a bother to recall. Also while I'm at it, let me ask, aren't these the standard issue that are only available to Anbu? Doing his best to suppress his nervousness, Nezu quickly responded, Hi sir. And the fact that the sealing matrices are visible means that these have already been used. The Sandame further questioned. All 4 Anbu could feel sweat forming under their masks. Hi, sir. Yagi responded. Okay then, one last question. The aged leader then narrowed his gaze before asking in a low and threatening tone, why were they found at the scene? All 4 Anbu swallowed nervously. It was Kumo that asked, what do you mean, sir? What I mean is that I had a few of my loyal Anbu operatives scour the scene for anything that may have been out of place. They found these 4 tags all in specific locations that would allow for a silencing barrier to be erected. Ikaru went to speak, but the Sandame wouldn't let him. Furthermore, these tags require a constant stream of chakra to function properly. Which means that whoever used them was there the entire time to witness what happened. Now I will ask once more. Why were they found at the scene? Knowing that they were caught, the Anbu squad moved to escape via body flicker, but the Sandame wasn't having that and showed them why he was caged. With speed that would make Might Guy scream youth. Hiruzen incapacitated all 4 members and stood over them as he readjusted his robes. The aged leader shook his head. I have no words to convey my disappointment in you 4. I trusted you and you betrayed that trust. From his spot on the ground, Nezu asked. How did you know that we were lying? Simple. With the use of her sensory capabilities, Nico identified the residual chakra signatures on the tags to be yours. And as I stated before, the tags require a constant stream of chakra to work effectively. So that means that all of you were there and watched as they tortured my godson. By the end, Hiruzen's calm tone had turned into a low growl, which hardly held back his anger. Not trusting himself to be able to keep his calm much longer, Hiruzen signaled for his hidden Anbu to come out. Take them to Ibiki and Anko. I want to know everything that they've been up to. No kid gloves, am I understood? Nico, Ryu and Tori nodded at their leader. Hi, Hokage-sama. Before they flickered away with the rogue Anbu, Hiruzen took this moment of solitude to recompose himself and let the anger he was feeling to subside. With his temper reined in, he took a breath and opened his eyes to look through his window, specifically he looked at the hospital. I think my visit to Naruto-kun is far overdue. With a nod to himself, he excused himself from his office. Back at the hospital, a few minutes earlier, the walk to Naruto's room was done in silence. Since it was only 2 rooms down from the girl's room, it took them no time to get there. Upon opening the door, the duo were met with the sight of a nurse carefully removing some of Naruto's bandages. It seems that you're almost fully healed, Naruto-kun. The pink-haired woman said in a warm tone before she wrapped one of her arms around the back of Naruto's neck and helped him sit up in the bed. Up we go. Ignoring the pain coming from his back, Naruto managed to stay sitting up, which allowed the pink-haired nurse to unwrap the bandages from his torso. As this was happening, he noticed that they had company. Oh, Inoichi-san, Omo-san. Hey there, kiddo. Omo responded. Hey there, Joy. The now identified Nurse Joy turned around to greet the men. Oh, Inoichi-san, Omo-san. How can I help you this morning? Morning, Joy. You wouldn't mind giving us a few minutes with your patient, would ya? I have a few things to ask surrounding how he ended up in here. Inoichi asked. Sure, no problem. Just don't take too long. I'm not done cleaning him up yet, alright. The Pinket responded. Yeah, we'll try not to be too long. Omo responded. Joy nodded and started to make her way out. As she passed Omo, she slowed down for a few seconds and locked eyes with him. With a sexy smirk and a sensual bat of her eyelashes she exited the room. Omo watched the almost cat-like manner in which her hips swayed right up till she exited the room and closed the door behind her. So mesmerized he was, he almost didn't feeling the nudges from his little brother. Hee. Seems someone's caught the eye of our resident Pinket beauty. Inoichi teased. Omo shrugged off the nudging and responded in a calm and cool manner. Not my fault the ladies love me. You know, you could learn a thing or two from me. Inoichi could practically see the shit-eating grin that threatened to spread over his Iniki's face. With a roll of his eyes, the younger of the two responded. Thanks, but no thanks. I already have my hands full with Ilyana. Besides, the last time another woman so much as looked at me the wrong way, she threatened to introduce me to her broom version of the 1,000 Years of Death. Omo chuckled and responded. Aren't you the one that's supposed to be tearing up her ahem? Mine are in the room. The blonde boy said to remind them that he was still there. Inoichi awkwardly chuckled while Omo rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. You didn't hear anything. Inoichi tried to play it off. A little too much for my liking. Naruto dryly replied. He. Yeah, let's just pretend that didn't happen. Inoichi said before he regained his composure. So Naruto, how are you feeling? Good, all things considered. Gesturing toward his bandages. Could have done without waking up in this sterilized box, but meh. Naruto shrugged. What can I do for you? We wanted to ask you some questions and get your recollection of the attack. Is that alright? Inoichi asked. Naruto squinted his eyes and he held his head as all of a sudden there was a stinging sensation at the front of his head. Naruto, you okay? Inoichi asked. The blonde boy looked up and for a split second and his vision flashed. Inoichi, Omo and the hospital room were all gone replaced by a dark alleyway and the silhouette of a man whose features he couldn't make out. Before he could properly interpret what he saw, his vision flashed again and the scene returned to normal. What the hell was that? Snap. Omo snapped his fingers to get Naruto's attention. Naruto, are you still with us, kiddo? Naruto looked at him and once again his vision flashed, but this time Omo was replaced with a dark silhouette before his vision flashed again and went back to normal. Now, looking at Inoichi's brother, Naruto couldn't stop the hairs on the back of his neck from standing on edge and the slight trembling of his arms. Seeing his reaction, Inoichi grew concerned. Naruto. What's wrong? Flash after flash occurred as a long-buried memory started to resurface. Naruto was backed into a corner, surrounding him were the citizens of Konoha civilian and shinobi alike. They were just standing there, looking at him with sinister smiles adorning their faces. Footsteps could be heard approaching, and like a scene taken from a Christian doctrine, the crowd parted to make way for this new figure, whose face was obscured by a black hood. Stay away from me. Naruto yelled at the figure. The person ignored him and kept moving forward. Naruto took a few steps backwards before his back met the cold concrete. Shit. He looked up to see that the hooded figure was now standing directly in front of him. What do you want from me? The blonde asked. What do I want? The figure parroted. He went silent before as quick as a flash, he lashed out and grabbed the boy by his collar. Displaying some impressive upper body strength, the figure lifted the boy off the ground and was now looking directly into his eyes. I want to meet the monster that took my loved ones from me. What the hell is wrong with you people? I never killed anyone. The boy yelled as he tried to pry the man's hand from his neck. You seem to not remember. In that case, let me. He held up his free hand and grabbed Naruto's forehead. Remind you. All of a sudden, Naruto's mind was flooded with memories that weren't his. Memories of a beautiful blonde woman along with two children, a blonde boy who looked to be in his teens and a little blonde girl who looked no older than 8. The picturesque scene of a happy, loving family morphed into one of utter horror. They were all dead. Their bodies mangled beyond recognition and crushed beneath the tons of rubble that used to be their home. As soon as the memory came, it went wet. His cheeks were wet. Why were they wet? He brought a hand up to his face and wiped it. He was crying. Now do you see what you've done? With tears trailing down his face, the boy answered. I'm sorry for what happened to you, B, but please, listen. It wasn't me. I swear, I'm not the one that killed your family. Hearing this, the man got even more upset. Playing innocent is not going to help you. The man said as he fixed his grip on the boy's neck and slammed him into the wall. My wife, Ritai-chan. You took her from me. The man's chakra slowly began to flare. My children, Ravel and Riser. You took them from me. He started to direct his chakra to his palm. And now I'm going to make you suffer. Ravel. Riser. Naruto's eyes widen as his mind finally caught up to who he just saw in the memory. That means why you're. The man chuckled before he flicked his head backward. Took you long enough, kiddo? In that one smooth motion, the hood fell from his face and revealed the man to be. The memory faded, but the face of his attacker overlapped with the face of the man he was now looking at. Omo? You still with us, kiddo? Naruto's eyes glowed bright blue and lightning crackled along his body. Get away from me. Holding up his hand, he fired a bolt of lightning that hit Omo square in the chest and sent the man flying through the wall with a loud crash. Brother. Inoichi quickly ran through the hole in the wall and to his downed brother. Omo was on his back and was groaning in pain. The front of his flak jacket was burnt off completely while the rest of it was melting onto his skin. His chest was bare for all to see, the smoking black scorch mark now marring it. Inoichi kneeled down and held his brother close to him. Omo, are you okay? With his eyes slowly rolling to the back of his head, Omo gave out. I should have reinforced the damn thing. Before going unconscious. Down the hall, the girls and the parents ran out to see what happened. Soon the hallway was filled with people, staff and patients alike, who were all wondering what just happened. We got an injured person here. Prep a room and someone get a stretcher, ASAP. A staff member said. The girls and the parents ran up to Inoichi, paying mind to not trip over the debris. Inoichi, what happened? Ilyana asked. I don't know. We were just about to question Naruto when something happened and Suddenly, the bulbs all exploded, startling those present and sending fragments of glass flying everywhere as the hallway lost its illumination. Inside the room, Naruto was clutching the sides of his head as a lightning whirlwind raged on around him, frying everything it came into contact with and was growing with each pulse of his power. Wave after wave of excruciating pain racked the boy's body and mind. His screams hardly conveyed the level of agony he was feeling. It felt like his brain was tearing itself apart from the inside out. Another pulse emanated from his body and enlarged the electric whirlwind. On the outside of the room, the onlookers had to back away from the opening, lest they get electrocuted. They could nothing but watch as the boy howled in agony. Ino watched the blonde boy screaming in pain, and that struck something within her. She didn't know why, but seeing him in pain hurt. It felt wrong to see him like that, and she had this overwhelming urge to go and help him, to go comfort him. Not realizing the single tear that escaped her light blue eyes, she began to step into the room. We have to help him. Ilyana quickly grabbed her and pulled her back to safety. It's too dangerous to approach him now. But we have to do something. We can't leave him like that. The young blonde beauty cried with more tears spilling out of her baby blue orbs. As luck would have it, the sandaime flickered into the hallway not a second after she said that. I heard the commotion and came as quickly as I could. What's the— he stopped mid-sentence when he saw the issue. Oh. Another scream erupted from the boy's lungs, and another pulse of lightning once again enlarged the charged whirlwind. Hiruzen could see the walls of the boy's room beginning to buckle from the force of the electric cyclone. Out of the corner of his eye he noticed that Inoichi was holding his older brother. What happened to— never mind, we can figure this mess out once we get Naruto under control. Taking charge of the situation, he ordered everyone to clear the area and told them to evacuate the hospital just in case things get out of hand. Once he was alone with Naruto, he started to speed through his hand seals before stopping on bird. Futen. Keizuzu Kamusho. The wind picked up speed and steadily it formed a wind sphere that encompassed the entire room and trapped Naruto inside. The wind battled against the lightning for dominance, but steadily it seemed that the wind began to nullify Zeus's element. Just a little bit longer, Naruto-kun. A powerful pulse of lightning erupted from Naruto's body which shattered the wind sphere and sent Hiruzen barreling through multiple walls before he came to a halt 4 rooms away from where he was. Shaking off the dizziness brought on by the hit, the old man looked up and he could see the ceiling beginning to crumble. Damn it. Doten. Virgingapira. Multiple pillars of stone rose up out of the ground and stopped just under the ceiling to provide support. That should hold until we get it fixed. Looking in the direction of his godson, he could see that the boy was beginning to glow. This is bad. I need to get him under control before he levels the entire building. The old man quickly made his way back to the boy's room whilst speeding through hand seals. Forgive me if this hurts, Naruto-kun. Stopping on Snake, he called out. Doten. Chikyu no Haration. 4 long and thin earth structures rose up out of the ground and surrounded Naruto's bed, each of them measuring about 127 centimeters in height. 3 pronged-like structures sprang up on top of each rod before giving off an electric charge and began grounding Naruto's lightning. I hope this works. Outside the building, citizens of the village were going about their day as usual, kids going to school, adults going to work, patrons visiting their local businesses. However, all actions came to a complete halt upon a loud clap of thunder. Cla cla boom. It was so close that it literally shook ground they were standing on. They looked up and the bright vibrant blue sky was being replaced by a dull gray hue. Not so far off on the horizon, clouds that looked as if they were touched the darkest abyss approached with lightning striking the earth, scorching anything they touch. The citizens looked on rooted to their spots by an overwhelming sense of dread and apprehension. The white-haired shinobi, donning a light green flak jacket and a bandana-styled hit-I-8, was shaking in his sandals as he watched the sky light up as if someone had royally pissed off the thunder god. The citizens were broken out of their bewilderment when a bolt of lightning came crashing down right on top of the white-haired shinobi, shaking the earth as if it were hit by a high-magnitude earthquake. Run. That single panic-induced scream sent everyone running in an alarm-fueled frenzy, leaving behind the smoking skeleton of the now former academy instructor. As if reacting to their panic, bolts of lightning began raining down on the village as if it were punishing them for their sins. Zeus's element struck without hesitation nor remorse. Anything that got in its path, be it man, woman or child, was shown no mercy. The black-haired woman was slumped down on her knees in the middle of the road. The world around her seemed non-existent as she didn't seem to register the panic that surrounded her. Tears were freely flowing from her eyes as she continued to stare at the burned and trampled remains of her daughter and husband. "Dear, Kami. What is happening?" Back in the hospital, Hiruzen looked through the window out on the chaos that raining down upon his village. "Good Kami. What is happening? As much as I'd like to blame the old goddess for this, she's not the one responsible here." The old cage whipped around instantly to see who spoke. Standing there was a man that he could only describe as ethereal. This man was adorned in white monk-styled robes that he wore underneath a long blue, sleeveless vest that had gold trimming. Atop his head was a dark brown straw hat that shadowed his glowing blue eyes that, like the rest of his body, radiated and danced with electricity. The Sandaime furrowed his brows at the man. "Who are you?" "Who I am is of little importance at this time. What is important is healing my descendant before he causes any more damage to your village." That little piece of information left Hiruzen's mouth agape. "Why your descendant?" "Yes. Do not worry about that, for it shall be explained later on." "How do I know that I can trust you?" "Without missing a beat. For I am the only one offering to save this young man's life as well as the life of your village." That shut the old man up. Point taken. The straw hat wearing individual nodded before moving toward the blonde boy. Hiruzen was gobsmacked when the man literally walked through the whirring lightning with no adverse effects to whatsoever. The ethereal being placed his hand underneath the boy's head and almost immediately he stopped screaming. "You are in great pain, young one." He moved his hand down and lightly grasped the blonde's forehead. "Allow me to take it away." There was a small flash in the man's hand before steadily he began pulling his hand back as if he were pulling something out of the boy's head. Steadily he kept pulling until a few moments later he yanked his hand back and completely removed what was bothering the boy. The effect was instant. Naruto fell back on the bed unconscious and the lightning subsided completely. On the outside, the dark clouds started to steadily dissipate and the lightning strikes came to a complete halt. Hiruzen looked at the flame with a skeptical gaze. "What is that?" In the robed man's hand was a little blue flame. Chakra. An imprint left in the boy's mind which was set to destroy it upon being compromised. It wouldn't have outright killed him, but there wouldn't be much point to him being alive, seeing as he'd be brain dead. It also seems to be the source of the young one's forgetfulness in terms of his attacks. He explained before closing his fist and extinguishing the flame. An imprint. An image of Omo's downed body flashed in Hiruzen's mind before a frown settled on his face. It seems that Omo has some answering to do. Regardless, now that that has been taken care of, I believe it's safe to say that your village has been spared a rather gruesome fate. At this Hiruzen looked out the window, and while he could see that a good bit of damage had been done, it wasn't irreparable. He just hoped the casualties, if there were any, weren't too high. Before the aged leader could give his gratitude, 3 of his Anbu flickered into the room. Hokage-sama Arutori stopped mid-sentence upon seeing the other occupant. They immediately drew their weapons and took offensive stances. "Who are you? State your business." "Stand down," came the voice of their leader. "But, sir, I said stand down. He is not a threat to us, now stand down." He reaffirmed in a sterner tone. The 3 Anbu reluctantly nodded and reholstered their weapons. "Good, now everything is under control here. Tori, you and Taka go and survey the village and compile a report of all the damages. Heido, you gather a group and scour the village to do a search and rescue in case any of our residents are in need of help. You have your orders, now go." "Hi, sir." With that they flickered away to complete their tasks. Seeing that they were no longer needed, Hiruzen released his technique and allowed the rods to sink back into the earth. Going to his godson's bedside, he placed his palm on the boy's head and rubbed it lightly. He felt glad to see that he was better than he was a few minutes ago. "I'd like to thank you by name, but you have yet to share it with me." "Well, seeing as the crisis has been averted, I see nothing wrong with telling you who I am," the man said before stood with his hands folded over his chest. "I am Raiden, god of thunder and lightning and the protector of Earthrealm. And that is a wrap. I once again express my gratitude to all of you who have stuck with this story. Really appreciate it. I also want to thank FANREADER26 for helping me with the scene where the dark clouds are converging on Konoha. Thanks man. Any questions you want answered, feel free to leave it in a review and I'll get back to you. Now I know that some of you are likely to point out that Inoichi could have simply done a mind walk on the girls instead of doing it the old-fashioned way. The reason why he didn't do so is because it is an invasive method that he'd rather not use on the girls unless he had to. Using it on criminals is one thing, using it on his own daughter and her friend is another. And yes, I used Hiruzen and his wife as Naruto's godparents because I'd rather not go down the rather cliché rabbit hole that is bashing Jiraiya for being an asshole godfather. I wanted to try something different. Also, I know that someone may point out that Kyuubi could have gotten rid of the imprint, but I say no, she couldn't. I did my research and I came to the conclusion that while Kyuubi does have access to Naruto's body and can heal him, physically she doesn't have access to his mind to do any alterations to it. She may be able to see his memories, but that's it. Now before anyone argues this point, remember that in canon, Kyuubi hated being confined, especially when he was placed in Naruto. He hated it so much that he was willing to dedicate years to slowly leaking his chakra through the gate to get out. Someone with that sort of determination would have looked for other ways to get out, including trying to manipulate the boy's mind before resorting to the long way. The fact that he didn't tells me that he could not access Naruto's mind to that degree. Also do remember that Minato and Kushina both had imprints of themselves in Naruto's mind, and Kyuubi had no idea that they were there until they revealed themselves. So here, even if Kyuubi did know that the imprint was there and was causing trouble, she wouldn't have been able to do anything about it unless Naruto gave her access to his mind. More about the imprint will be explained in the next chapter, whenever I'm able to get it out. What if Naruto was raised in Mortal Kombat Sasuke bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.